It's in our nature to protect the ones we love, to stand up to any danger, to be strong and courageous, to always be prepared, to keep our family safe, to be the first line of defense. We are born to protect.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight in this live broadcast. We're broadcasting live from West Bend, Wisconsin. The topic tonight is the continued focus of preserving American freedom in light of the coronavirus threat. I'm very excited to have a very special guest on tonight, Joe Bartozzi. Joe is the CEO and president of the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the vaunted NSSF. If you're at all remotely connected to the firearms industry, you have always a huge dream to go to the SHOT Show. Well, the SHOT Show is what the NSSF runs, and they're an organization that's been around for a long time. I believe they were started in 1961. And Joe, welcome to the program tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Tim, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So I first met Joe a couple years ago, but then just recently at the last SHOT Show, before the whole country was shut down, I got to know him even better. I had an opportunity to introduce him on stage shortly after he was named the president and CEO of the NSSF. And I got to tell you, there's not too many people that you'll meet that are nicer, more down to earth people than Joe Bartozzi. So Joe, I'm excited to hang out tonight and talk about some important stuff. So just a kind of a summary of the topics we're going to be talking about is, as everyone's heard on the news, so much talk about, hey, should firearms retailers, are they really an essential business? Now, of course, to you and me, that question sounds absolutely insane, but we're going to dig into that a little bit. I'm looking forward to that. Other thing we're going to be talking about, just looking at my notes here, is what can, and we get this question a lot from people, what can we do right now to continue to support the Second Amendment? Because if you're anything like me, you can sense that yes, it is under attack, and so we have to take care of that. And then the last thing we're going to be doing is Joe and I are going to be taking turns explain to you guys exactly what we're doing right now, both the USCCA and the NSSF, to help support Second Amendment rights, as well as educate all of these brand new gun owners that have recently come on the scene because of this coronavirus outbreak. So hopefully that sounds like a good group of things to talk about. I do want to welcome anyone who's never heard of the USCCA before or the NSSF. And for somehow, if maybe a friend shared this link with you and you're watching this video right now, welcome. The organizations that Joe and I represent are two of the most prolific organizations in terms of helping Americans be responsibly armed. And for those of you who are USCCA members, welcome back. I love you guys. We will have some cool special offers tonight for USCCA members that we normally don't see, so stay tuned for that. And for those of you who are considering either NSSF membership or USCCA membership, we'll also be discussing that toward the end. But for now, let's dive into the topics. And I'm really excited to talk about this first one, Joe. Especially, I recently read a news article. I believe it said that France came to the conclusion that, hold on, where is it here? Yes, recent news says France is considering pastry shops to be essential businesses. Now, obviously, we don't live in France. Yeah. So I would love to hear your comments on that, as well as some of the things that you've been hearing about really what do we as Americans consider essential businesses?
Right. That's a great question, and we look at this. And I guess before I get into it, I guess I would like to say that the National Shooting Sports Foundation has been on the front edge of working with governors and the Department of Homeland Security on deeming these businesses like retailers, distributors, manufacturers, and ranges as essential businesses. But I would like to preface that by saying That doesn't mean we don't want you to follow the CDC guidelines, practicing social distancing and all the hygiene issues. We obviously don't want any folks to get sick because of this. So there are ways, in fact, to keep these places open and to be safe and protected by following the CDC guidelines. Having said that, we look at this theme about essential businesses. I look at it in three different ways. The first thing you want to look at is national security, right? So you've got firearms and ammunition manufacturers that are working every day to fulfill Department of Defense contracts. So our armed forces get their guns and ammo almost exclusively from American manufacturers. So to say that national security wouldn't be considered essential in this time when they're keeping package stores and pot dispensaries open seems like an absurd concept. But the truth of the matter is the national security of this country is essential for all of us, especially at a time when there's somewhat distraction and crisis and uncertainty. This is a time when you want to especially be on your guard. The second thing I think that would certainly argue towards being an essential service would be the issue of security, that is for things like public safety and security. So law enforcement, county sheriffs, first responders. By and large, these folks are getting their firearms, ammunition, and targets and training from ranges, from retailers, and even from distributors. So you want to make sure that you have the wherewithal to have these folks out on the street doing their job, being well equipped and well trained. So it's not a far stretch to say these types of businesses are essential. And the third prong that I would just touch on is the important issue of personal self-defense, personal security. We've seen all too often when there's some type of tragedy, some type of natural disaster, political unrest, that sometimes the worst of human nature comes out and people get concerned. You saw after Katrina, the looting, the robbing, the riots, the crimes committed against the civilians there in New Orleans. And I think it's very important that people be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And certainly what we've seen the last week and a half or 2 weeks, it's extraordinary how many people are out there. And I'll just add one thing, that on I think it was the 20th of March was the highest NICS day ever. Okay, and 5 out of the top 10 highest NICS check days was the week of the 17th to the 21st. So something's going on here. There is a shift in people wanting to exercise their Second Amendment rights and wanting to be able to defend themselves. And I think that's extraordinary that we're seeing these numbers.
Yeah, Joe, I couldn't agree more with respect to really everything you just said. Let me just rewind a few steps. And I think it's really important for the viewers to understand that the NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, I mean, your main purpose is to support the industry. And so your customers are the manufacturers, the ranges, and the retailers. And I got to tell you, considering that the firearms related industry is literally, it seems to me, it's under constant attack from state governments, from federal governments. And so, I mean, I really applaud what you guys do. I've been to many of your events, not just the SHOT Show, but all of the other events that you do for the industry. And it's so important what you guys do. And you did a great job of outlining how, the firearms industry, it extends not just into like, we're buying a gun at Walmart or buying a gun at the gun range, but supporting all of our law enforcement and military. And so therefore, I mean, to me, it just seems obvious that, of course, the firearms industry, if anything, is just as important as food. So, but let's just move. Let's move a little forward into what you just ended up with, which was you're talking about, I can't remember what day you said, but just recently, day in March, that was the
March.
number one NICS.
Yep.
March 20th. March 20th, number one NICS day in the history of our country. And that is great. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to jump. I just want to put that in perspective. The month of March of 2020 is the highest month in NICS history, even surpassing December of 2012, which was, of course, following the tragedy at Sandy Hook here in Connecticut. So even then, this virus has created a paradigm shift in people choosing to exercise their Second Amendment rights. I think it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. That there is a huge groundswell of people that are deciding that, hey, I think I should become a gun owner. And I know that to some people that doesn't make sense, but what I've discovered or what I've seen over the really almost decade and a half that I've been running the USCCA is when times are challenging in our society, it causes people to look inward at their own personal security. And it causes them to think about, gosh, what would I do if I was in a situation where I had to defend myself? And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that people realize, oh gosh, the firearm is such a powerful a tool for equalization of force. And so to that end, I think now more than ever, organizations like yours, NSSF and the USCCA, we really need to help people, especially all these new gun owners, understand that being trained is so very important. It's so important to know how to use and when to use that tool, that powerful tool, the firearm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And just a full disclosure, I am a very proud member of the USCCA, and I go on and look at the videos, the training videos, read the magazines cover to cover, and you guys do an absolutely terrific job of educating people remotely. On my iPad, in my kitchen or my living room, I can watch these videos, I can learn, I can get trained. Similarly, NSSF has done an awful lot in the area of training, and we're especially while we're very excited to welcome all these new shooters that are going to come into our fold. I think it's a wonderful thing. We also have to understand these new shooters, there is a sense of responsibility. You have to be very careful with how you handle a firearm. And we have on our YouTube channel, if you go to YouTube and type in NSSF, you're going to get our channel, and there are literally hundreds of training videos from the very first beginning safety lessons all the way up to advanced long-range shooting. That I think you'll find very entertaining and very educational. And I absolutely urge you to take a look at those things. And the other thing I would just want to add to that is part of safely handling a firearm in your home for you new owners is also understanding how to safely secure that firearm when you're not using it. Most guns, if not every gun today, comes with a locking device. I urge you to use it. I'll also go back and I spent a good bit of my career writing owner's manuals for a major manufacturer in our industry. And the first thing I'll tell people is please read the owner's manual. It outlines all the safety requirements and tips. Use a locking device, buy a lockbox, buy a safe if you can. But by all means, safe storage is paramount, especially to people that are less familiar with firearms or maybe children in their house or something like that.
Joe, well said. One of the things I've always admired about the NSSF is that you guys do a great job of I guess what I would say is siloing important initiatives and almost kind of branding them on their own. For example, the Project Child Safe. You talked about gun locks, and that's what that's about. It's about, hey, what can we do to make people aware that when you buy a firearm, it is your responsibility to make sure it's stored properly. And ultimately, that reflects back on having safe kids. So Project Child Safe is one that I've always thought was impressive. Operation Secure Store, that's helping gun ranges make sure that they know how to properly secure their weapons. And then you've got Fixed NICS as well, which is another great program. So congrats on all those. Let's talk about. I really want to applaud you guys on the letter that you sent to the Homeland Security Department regarding firearms and ammunition. Tell me how that thing came about.
Well, it's funny. It came up really all of a sudden, and I'll tell you, this thing was not on our radar when this virus started to hit the U.S. Okay, and ironically, probably 3 weeks or so ago, I was having lunch with one of our banking folks, a business lunch. And the gentleman was lamenting the fact that he couldn't find 9mm ammunition anywhere. And I was like, well, that seems strange because I know our guys are cranking it out. I get home that night, I get a call from a buddy, says, what's the deal with 9mm ammo? They're having a run on the ammo. And we shook our head and said, what the heck's going on? But then all of a sudden, we saw this groundswell of people rushing out and buying ammunition and new gun owners getting in line. And we realized that governors were starting to take steps of avoiding, California called it shelter in place. Connecticut had another term for it, no socializing, you can't go out, closing non-essential businesses. And we were like, this is a problem. If people are waiting in line to buy a firearm for self-defense, God forbid this situation should deteriorate, we need to make sure that we're somehow protected. So our state government relations folks started making contact with the state legislators and governor's offices. Our federal GR folks reached out to the Department of Homeland Security and the Trump administration saying, look, don't forget about us. People are trying to get to buy guns. And it's a very important time right now. You also have government contractors making millions and millions of rounds of ammunition for the military, as we already talked about. So we knew we had to do something. And to be perfectly honest with you, we weren't sure. We were not sure what was going to stick, what they were going to be receptive to listening to, but we felt we had to make the argument. And you could see now that things are actually moving in a direction that makes a lot of sense for the country. I just got word a few minutes before I went on the air that Florida has also now deemed firearms and retailers, firearms retailers, to be essential businesses. So again, another move in the right direction by the governor of Florida. But again, practicing social distancing, doing the right thing to keep people safe, but also safety includes self-defense and home protection.
Yeah, Joe, those are great points, and I'm again appreciative of the NSSF leadership with articles like that, with letters like that help states kind of see the fallacy of their ways and get things turned around. So one of the things that we're trying to do here at the USCCA with these broadcasts, and when I say with these broadcasts, we've never really done these before, and I really have to hand it to the video team and the marketing team for putting these together so quickly under situations where they hardly come into the office anymore. And the whole idea here is to get people some information that can be valuable to them. Because we understand that there's so many new gun owners and even current USCCA members are always looking for new ways to sharpen their skills and understand what they need to learn, etc. But so anyway, so the whole point I'm getting at here is that one of the things when we promote these events is we tell our viewers and any future viewers, hey, if you have any questions for myself or Joe, you can send them in. So let's just take a few minutes here. I want to share a few of the questions that came in, and I suspect they'll prompt some additional good conversation between you and me. So this first question here is from Michael S. And he didn't give a state. He just says he's from out west. So Michael S. from out west. Joe and Tim, are governments like California, Washington, or New York trying to use the pandemic as an excuse to attack Second Amendment rights? Joe, you want to start with that one?
Sure, I'll take a swipe at this one. I think it's a great question. I think certainly you could make the argument that it would appear so in some locations. However, if you look at Illinois, if you look at Connecticut, certainly no strong friends of the industry, they took the steps fairly early on to deem firearms retailers and manufacturers as essential. So while I certainly suspect there are some ulterior motives on the minds of some of these governors and county officials, of course, because we've seen some of that as well, and cities and so on, I wouldn't think it's as blanket a statement as everyone's out to deprive people of their rights. Some certainly maybe. They could be pandering to their supporters. They could be getting grief from the anti-gun folks, because certainly the anti-gun folks see this as a major shift politically from people who maybe were on the fence about guns. All of a sudden, they're now embracing the Second Amendment, and I don't think they expected this. So while I think yes, the short answer is yes, but I wouldn't say everyone is being like that, including some anti-gun states.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. I would like to start my answer to the question with one of the most famous, or I should say infamous, political operatives. Rahm Emanuel says, "Never let a crisis go to waste." And from that perspective, my biggest fear in this pandemic, and no, don't get me wrong, I feel horrible about the people that are getting sick and that are dying from this virus, but I feel just as dangerous is for Americans to lose important freedoms as a knee-jerk response to something that we don't quite understand. And I hope and pray that doesn't happen, but but that's what I'm nervous about. So in terms of, like, what do I think about the specific responses from sometimes their municipalities, sometimes their entire states? I've actually been surprised. Like when I believe it was the governor of Illinois, or maybe it was the mayor of Chicago, I can't remember, when he came out and said that, yes, firearm stores are essential. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, where did this come from?
I agree. And, part of it could be, as a practical matter, perhaps they understand that in a federal court, the type of blanket closures regarding the use of a fundamental right wouldn't hold up, wouldn't withstand strict scrutiny, might not even withstand intermediate scrutiny in a court. So perhaps they're looking and saying, why waste the money and effort on a lawsuit, which I know we're probably going to lose? Let's just go ahead and do the right thing now. Now, again, I don't want to assume that I understand what was in their minds, but to see Illinois come out fairly early on, as you mentioned, Governor Pritzker there, I gotta give him credit for that. I mean, he did the right thing for whatever reason, whatever motive he may have had. The result, at least up to now, has been the right thing for gun owners and Americans in general.
I agree, and I applaud Governor Pritzker as well. I'm very impressed with that, very proud of that decision. So just to put an end point to that question, honestly, I felt that there would be much more challenges throughout this thus far. So I'm glad that we haven't seen as much as we've had. So Michael S., hopefully that's a good answer for you. And here, there's one more question, then we'll go on to the next topic. This is from Jason from California. Jason says, Dear Joe and Tim, if they shut down all the gun stores and manufacturers, isn't that basically a de facto gun ban? What about the Second Amendment then? So I'll start with this one, Jason. Yes, okay. You're right. It would be a de facto gun ban. And luckily, we're not seeing that. And luckily, if anything, I think just the opposite's happening. And when I say that, I mean that and actually, Joe, you just mentioned that. I feel like there's some people right now that either just bought or are trying to buy guns that never would have dreamed of buying a gun in their life. And the good news for that is that these people hopefully will go through an appropriate process of learning and education. And when you do that, when you do go through that process of learning and education, it's impossible not to eventually understand, okay, wow, this gun that I just bought, this isn't about hunting deer. This is about protecting my family. This is about protecting my freedom. And so I think in the big picture, this is going to be good for freedom in our country.
100% agree. I think it's a great question. I think it's actually more insightful than maybe I originally thought when I first heard the question. But the right under the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms really begins at the retail counter. That's where you can actually manifest that right to take lawful possession of. So really, if you're shutting down guns or you're shutting down manufacturing, let's just stick with gun shops, because that's where the consumer gets to really interact with the industry, the gun industry, firsthand. Certainly, if you shut those down, it is an infringement on the Second Amendment right. And I would just throw one more thing in there too for all you folks that don't live in California. Most of the states have an equivalent, and in many cases even stronger provision for the right to keep and bear arms than even the Second Amendment. So don't forget your state constitutions as well. So I just put that out there because a lot of people tend to overlook that. There's some very powerful protections in state constitutions for the Second Amendment type protections.
Yeah, there sure are, Joe. That's a great point. Okay, so that was our first topic, and I kind of feel like Joe and I did a pretty darn good job in helping explain to anyone who maybe didn't believe yet. But yes, firearms, gun shops, and ranges, and firearms industry in general is very essential, probably more so than ever. So the next topic that I want to talk about, and this topic comes from so many comments and so many questions that literally pour into the USCCA. And just to kind of paint a picture of this, a vision for you. So in our West Bend headquarters, we have about 340 employees. Over half of them are member service agents. So these are people that are on the phones and the computer chat and social media platforms and email. And they're constantly taking phone calls and all these other sources of comments and questions from our customers. And so needless to say, we have a pretty solid heartbeat of how our customers are feeling, because it's really easy to contact us and interact. So we're getting hundreds and hundreds of questions from our current customers, and they're saying, Tim, how the heck what can we do to support the Second Amendment right now? What can we do? We're stuck at home, but we realize we don't want to, lose these freedoms. What can we do? So Joe, before I turn this over to you, I just want to kind of tee you up here in the sense that not too long ago, you guys started the +1 movement. And I love this movement. First of all, I think it's a great name. It's got a great logo, and it means so much. So would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, I love this thing as well. At SHOT Show 2019, we launched the +1 movement. And really what this is this is a mentorship. It is a recruitment program whereby, imagine, Tim, your 300 some odd thousand members of USCCA. If every one of your members invited one non-shooter, one friend or family member who was not experienced with firearms, invited them to the range to get them used to handling firearms, to perhaps convert them to a person who would like to use firearms for sport or for hunting or for self-defense. Imagine what that would do to our sport. So our whole mission is to grow the membership of the shooting sports world, right? Shooting people going to the range. Also, we have a component for hunters, bringing out first-time hunters to the field. We started this, again, in SHOT 2019, so just about a year ago. We figured in the first year, if we could get 100,000 people to sign up, take our pledge, and really commit to bringing one new person to the field or to the range, we'd be doing really well. At the end of the first year, so like in January, we had nearly 600,000 people take the pledge. And that was absolutely astonishing to us. We're trying to get that number up to 1 million this year, because if we do that, that becomes the future of the shooting sports. Not only, again, we're a trade association, right? So we look at jobs in our industry, the businesses that are our members are, right? Retailers, ranges, distributors, manufacturers. So it's good for them, it's good for business. But think about it politically. And we kind of touched on it earlier in the last segment, but people that own firearms have a particular passion for the Second Amendment. People that don't own firearms could care less. They don't think it's really high on their list. But imagine if more people got involved in the shooting sport and realized, you know what? The Second Amendment is not about duck hunting. It's not about going trap shooting. It's about a lot more than that. And if they start changing that attitude, there's going to be a sea change with regard to the political landscape, and you won't get presidential candidates talking about taking down the industry or putting us out of business. Perhaps they'll get the message that the Second Amendment has a lot more weight and importance than you simply would agree to.
Oh, Joe, that's so true. I'd love to tell you a quick story about actually, this happens to me more often than not. And but one time, it was probably within the first 5 years of starting the USCCA, and a reporter from the Milwaukee area wanted to do an article on this organization. And so of course I'm like, heck yeah, come on up. But I did have one request. I said, my one request is that you allow me to take you shooting in the afternoon. And he agreed. And so we did the interview, and I could tell that from a political perspective, he was not, he thought that what I was doing was not good. But nonetheless, he held true to his promise. And I took him to the range, and I gave him an amazing experience. Now, when I say that, what I mean is that I started him out shooting a .22 pistol. When he was comfortable with that, then I pulled out a 9mm, and when he was comfortable with that, he got to shoot a .45 auto. And by the time our little session was over, I could see the gleam in his eyes. He was like, wow, I think I kind of like this. And I'd like to feel that maybe, I'm not sure what happened in the end, if he was completely transformed, but the neat thing about our sport, or the neat thing about Second Amendment and firearms in general, is that it is really easy. It is really easy to transform someone, or to almost, I'll use the word, convert them. And I love the +1 movement, because that's exactly what you guys are doing.
Tim, whether or not you converted the reporter is one thing, but I think more, just as importantly, perhaps, you made him think. And that's the key here, is getting people to think about what they're doing, because it's very easy to dismiss a right that you don't really engage in, like the Second Amendment, I suppose. But rights, once they go away, they don't come back. So hopefully you've planted a seed with him that says, hey, maybe I'll be a little bit more thoughtful before I mouth off about something I really know nothing about. You've given him an education. And I've had multiple similar experiences. I mean, I've been a wing shooter. I mean, I like shooting trap and skeet sporting clays and hunting birds. So that's kind of the thing where I gravitate toward with new shooters. And to me, there's nothing more exciting watching a young person or even an older person out to the skeet or trap field for the first time when they break that target. And I see the look in their eye, and they just light up. And it's just the most exciting thing for me is to be able to share my passion and my experience with other new shooters. And I just love doing it. And that's why I'm really so high in the +1 movement. Our marketing folks have done a wonderful job of getting this out. Our social media people are lighting it up, and people are responding. As I said, 6 times what we expected to get in the first year. And again, we're going to get that to 1 million before the end of this coming year, because it's that important and it has that kind of appeal to make people want to get out there and think about the shooting sports, the Second Amendment, and hunting.
Yeah, that's amazing. Joe, when I reflect back on I think it's been almost 17 years now since I started the USCCA, the change in the general feeling of all Americans, not just conservatives, but I'm talking about people that normally would never even dream of touching a gun. It's changed significantly. And nowadays it's not taboo to bring guns up at a cocktail party, because 9 times out of 10, other people will engage in that conversation. And to me, that is such a victory, because it eventually it's going to go to really be that foundation of protecting our rights. And I'm going to tie this back to the original question. I used to be frustrated by people who would contact me and say, "Well, Tim, I'm only one person. What can I do?" And I would get frustrated with that because I didn't know what to tell them. But now it's so much easier to give them that direction of course you should vote smart, vote for politicians who agree with their principles. But even more importantly, you can introduce shooting sports. You can introduce the concept of being your family's first line of defense, and people are open to it. Thank goodness.
Without question. I mean, you may be one person, but you don't live in a cave. You live in a world where friends and family and work associates, I mean, there are people that are very curious about going to the range. And I've had a lot of people, gee, what's it like? What do you do? Come with me. Come along, let me show you. And see whether you like it or not. So yeah, every one person touches so many other people. And all it takes, if we can get every shooter in this country to recruit one new shooter, our sport and our freedoms are going to be secured for generations to come. We can't be complacent, though. We have to be aggressive. We have to send the right message, and we have to be informed. We have to learn what the industry is doing, for example, to promote safety. You mentioned some of our key programs, Fix, Nix, and Don't Lie, and Operation Secure Store. Those are things that a lot of people don't hear about because the media doesn't want to talk about it. Because the truth of the matter is, violent crime is down, but gun ownership is up. I mean, there is a very important message there that more guns does not equal more crime. The crime rate is down, yet safety. We just got the safety report from the National Safety Council. Firearms accidents are at the lowest point since they started keeping records in 1903. So in 117 years, accidental deaths with firearms are at the lowest point in history, and they're down 47% in just the past 20 years alone. So we're doing something right. More guns in circulation, but more people are responding to the safety message, and that is another good thing people can do to support the industry, remind people of all the safety things we're doing to protect hunters and shooters and the whole community.
Yeah, and that's another hallmark of the NSSF organization, which is fantastic. And unfortunately, we're not going to hear those statistics on normal mainstream media, no. which is why we have to talk about them right now. So the bottom line is here now is that, so you're watching this Saturday morning, you wake up, you roll over and you say to your wife, "Honey, good news. I'm going to the range, not to just shoot more ammunition, but I'm fighting for the future of our country."
Right. It's a good excuse. I hope it works.
So let's kind of shift a little bit and let's talk about some of the different initiatives that both USCCA and NSSF are doing right now so we just got done talking about protecting rights and transforming the psyche of American society into being more open-minded about firearms ownership. But now let's talk about gun training and gun safety. and particularly from your perspective, ranges and retailers. But I'll give you a few minutes to think about that, Joe. And I'm going to start out by talking about what USCCA has been doing for training. So as you mentioned before about the NICS, I think in January and February of this year alone, there were over 5 million new gun purchases. 90% of them approximately are brand new gun owners. I was recently on Tucker Carlson on Fox News, and Tucker brought that point up, and I said, you know what, Tucker, it actually kind of makes me nervous because I want to make darn sure that all those brand new gun owners know how to use the gun. It's important that they know what to do, what not to do, how the thing operates, what are the laws in their jurisdiction. And now we're in this situation where now you just can't go down and sign up for a gun class because so many of them have been shut down. And so what I've really been asking my team to do here at the USCCA is to really build out our online training program. And we've added more and more resources to our website that are free. But when you're ready to take it to the next level, there's tremendous online resources at our membership website as well. And a lot of people will be like, well, geez, Tim, does online training really work for firearms proficiency? And of course, nothing replaces being at a live range. But the bottom line is that you can make tremendous headway. The body can't do what the mind hasn't thought of. And so the first step is always to train your mind, and you can easily do that in the comfort of your home. So I'm curious, Joe, I'll kind of put you on the spot here, but I know you're a proud USCCA member, and thank you for that. But have you experienced any of the USCCA online training?
I have, yes, I have actually. Most of it centers around the self-defense portion, and the reason is because I've been a concealed carry holder and an avid hunter and shooter for, 35 years or more. Now, not that you can't ever learn new things, because I'm always learning new things. And as I was an instructor and a trainer at my last job for range safety, so I'm a certified NRA range safety officer. So I'm constantly, refreshing my credentials and making sure that I keep up on these things and new action types and things like that. But you hit it right on the head. You can do it online. It gives you something to think about so that when you actually do get to the range, you can practice what you've learned in a safe environment. I would also add to that if you can get to a range or a retailer and you're a new shooter, don't be shy in telling the people behind the counter or on the firing line that you're new. And I'm very certain that they'd be very happy to help you learn some safety techniques and range etiquette and things like that. And to that point, we got on our YouTube channel all of these things for safety and range etiquette that are really important to know, because those of us that have been around the block a while, you can kind of spot the new folks when they roll in. They look a little uncertain, and I make it a point. I go over to them and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Joe. What can I help you with? What are you looking at? And kind of get them and point them in the right direction at least, because nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And if we all embrace 1 to 5 new people to teach them about the safety elements of firearms, we're all going to be better off. And we can get those numbers, those National Safety Council numbers, even lower going forward. Again, lowest numbers in recorded history since 1903. We can get them lower, and we're working to do just that with our programs as well.
Excellent. Joe, you touched on a few points, and a lot of them had to do with learning and training. So one of the things that my late father taught me was that, Tim, you always need to be learning. You always need to have a sense of humility. When I say that from the perspective of every room you walk into, there's someone in there that you can learn something from. There's someone in there that knows something that you don't know. And really, when you stop learning is kind of when you start dying. And so, believe it or not, I paid attention to my dad, and I've really embraced that. I love to learn. One of the funniest things he would always say, he said, Tim, learning is a lot like bathing and eating. It's best when done on a regular basis.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And there's a quote that I use myself, and I try to impart this to my kids, is live like you're going to, like today's your last day. So live like today's your last day, but learn like you're going to live forever. and reading and studying, and now with online content that so many places have, like USCCA and NSSF, it makes it easier than ever to learn. There's almost no excuse not to be educated on these topics. And like I said, as a range safety officer, I'm always learning and reading up on these new things, because I could always learn something new myself, and it's important to keep doing that, and that's how you evolve and grow as a person as well.
Yeah, well said. So Joe, tell me a little bit about the NSSF program for suicide prevention at ranges. Is that something new, or has that been around for a while?
It's fairly new. We actually partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's a fantastic group. They are the experts in suicide prevention. Okay, we, however, bring to bear the ability to talk to gun owners as gun owners. And frankly, AFSP has really educated us quite a bit and helped us with the materials that we've sent out to thousands and thousands of ranges and retailers around the country, just to educate them on perhaps the warning signs of what someone who is in crisis may be experiencing or exhibiting. And we urge range and retail folks, to have that conversation. If somebody's acting not quite right, don't be afraid to say, hey, is everything okay? How can I help you? By the way, here's a phone number. I urge you to reach out and talk to somebody on this to get perhaps some help. More recently, within the last about year, maybe less than a year, we also have a contract with the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. And I was honored about a month ago, when we could still travel. I was able to go out to San Francisco and actually present to a group of clinicians from the VA and others from around the country, doctors and scientists on the subject of suicide, from our perspective, from the NSSF perspective, and the things that we're doing in these public-private partnerships, like with the Department of Defense, the VA, and the Suicide Prevention Foundation, to try and get the message out to gun owners, to gun shops, and to gun ranges. And it was a very humbling experience. It was a great educational experience for me. And I will tell you that as gun owners, or as part of the gun industry, I should say, we were very well received by this crowd in California that most likely are not gun owners or avid shooters. But they respected the fact that we were willing to take a stand to prevent suicide, because while crime is going down and while the crime rate is dropping, unfortunately, suicides are rising. And I don't mean just suicide by gun, but I mean suicide by all lethal means is actually on the rise. And we don't know why that is exactly. Certainly, I'm not a scientist in that regard. But we, as the gun industry, are going to do everything we can to get the message out about safe storage, to perhaps even borrow or hold someone's guns while they may be going through crisis, to educate ranges and retailers on the warning signs that they might be able to intervene and prevent a suicide. So we are absolutely passionate about this. I told the group that I'm all in. I'm on board with this, and we are going to go full speed ahead to try and reduce the number of suicides, and also among veterans, which is a national tragedy, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's great that you guys are doing that. So, Joe, here's a kind of a question off the cuff. Hopefully, I don't catch it too off guard here, but I got to think that you've got a good sense of the pulse of the health of the firearms industry. So, I guess I would love to hear some comments in terms of like the overall health of the firearms industry. What you think is on the horizon? What are the trends you're seeing? I.e., in terms of seems to me like a lot of women are buying guns more and more. Can you enlighten us in anything there?
Absolutely. I've been in the industry for a long time. That's nearly 35 years working for a manufacturer and now working for the trade association for the industry. And, the industry was always a pretty cyclical thing. The highs were never as high as the big economies. The lows never seemed to be as low as when the economy would drop a little bit. It was always pretty stable. And then there was a change. I think during the Obama presidency, after 9/11, I think it really started 9/11 and then beyond, and it carried out through the Obama presidency, where I saw the trend of continuous upward growth in the industry and expansion with new companies coming online, new calibers, new styles of firearms. It was a very, very exciting time. If you looked back 15 years, the number of firearms in circulation, the number of background checks being performed, it's extraordinary. The volume of manufacturing between guns and ammo is extraordinary. If you told me 15 years ago we'd be here today with these numbers, I would say you're crazy. Even in spite of what is kind of euphemistically called the Trump slump, where people are getting nervous. Well, the industry is not doing great because Trump's in office. There's no threat, et cetera, et cetera. The numbers are really strong if you take a little bit longer view of this thing. So the overall health of the industry is really good, I think. I think gun manufacturers, ammo manufacturers, distributors, they have to be smart like any other businessman. You know, you can't be reckless with your money. You got to do the right thing, and you got to grow and expand carefully. But all in all, I think it's a good thing. And the second point you made about women joining the ranks of shooters, at last I checked, I think 40% of all new shooters are female, which is a wonderful thing. It opens up a world for them of empowerment, whether it be for self-protection, certainly the sport. I mean, I shot trap with a woman on one of my teams years ago, and she is just phenomenal. She would outshoot me any day of the week, and she was a little bitty thing, and you don't need to be a macho guy to be out there handle a firearm. Women shoot. There are awesome women shooters out there that I would not want to go up against. So it's empowering. It's a wonderful thing, and to the point of your organization, it provides a means of equalizing the playing field against an aggressive attacker, or more than one aggressive attacker. So nothing but good, I think, comes out of that, and I'm all for it, and very proud to say my wife is a concealed carry holder, and I never thought I'd see that, but she enjoy. We go to the range and enjoy it very much. So. It's a good thing.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great. Well, I'm excited about the future of our industry, especially with the likes of people like you leading the organization. So if anyone is watching this right now and if you own a gun company, if you own an accessories manufacturer, if you're in the industry, I urge you to join the NSSF. USCCA has been a member of NSS for at least a decade, maybe longer. And so please check it out. I'm pretty sure the website is nssf.org. Did I get that right, Joe?
Correct. Yes, you did.
Yep.
Thank you.
So check that out. Okay, so I realize that there are a lot of you out there watching this right now who aren't USCCA members. And I also am guessing that a lot of you are brand new gun owners. And that's why I've put together a really, really great offer to help you get up to speed with your training as fast as you possibly can within your brand new USCCA membership. So what I've done here is I put together 2 bonuses worth over $500. So if you really think about this, the bonuses themselves are worth more than the actual membership. The value is greater than the cost of a USCCA membership. So it's like you're getting a membership for free. The first bonus is this cool Pelican gun case. This is the Pelican Gun Vault. Now, those of you that are familiar with Pelican cases, you realize this is their brand new design they just came out with. Really handy case for any sort of firearm transfer and travel. And the next part of the bonus is this little gadget right here. Now, I'm holding this up by my face. It looks like a round of ammunition, but when you open it up, you'll see that it's actually a USB drive disguised as a round of ammunition. So all you do is you put this thing in your computer, and there is over 50 hours of video training that will help you become the responsibly armed citizen that your family needs you to be. So you're saying to yourself right now, well, what the heck is on the USB? You'll be getting our full Armed American Training video series. That includes home security and home defense, developing a personal protection plan, gun laws and you, how to select a firearm, top 10 concealed carry mistakes and how to avoid them, gun range and gun shop etiquette. You'll also receive this video training that's scenario-based training, and you'll learn about how to survive an attack in your own home, how to survive a mass shooting event, and how to protect your house of worship. There's also situational awareness, tips and trick video, when to use deadly force video, and we're including the first 4 volumes of the Best of Concealed Carry magazine. So yes, all of that is on this little bitty USB, and you'll be getting that for free. This is over a $493 value, yours free when you decide to join USCCA right now. All you got to do is go to uscca.com/NSSF, or if you want, you can call our member service agents at 877-677-1919. All right, I look forward to you guys joining the USCCA family. And Joe, I just got to tell you, it's been an honor having you on the show tonight. I really appreciate what you do for the industry. I also appreciate the great conversation we had, and thank you again for being here.
This was an awesome experience. I appreciate it very much.
All right, everyone here, this is Tim Schmidt broadcasting live from West Bend, Wisconsin for the USCCA. Please take care, stay safe, and have a great night.